Hello everybody. I know I decided to record another video today on this very hot summer day to kind of briefly give a summary of the last video that I did. Now with the last video I was talking about being in the corrections department and how long I was there for. So the main reason why I moved out here to New Mexico was to be a corrections officer. I wanted to be in law enforcement. I wanted to help people in general. And it kind of came from a little bit of my background. My brother, who is no longer with us, he was a druggie. He went to prison multiple times. He was never in my life until I was in my early teens. And I met him for the first time in prison, behind in a prison wall, in a prison setting. And it kind of opened my eyes that I didn't really want to do a lot of things. And I'm still very, very skeptical and afraid to do a lot of things just because I saw what my brother was and what he became. And that, unfortunately, too, my brother turned to that drugs and the dark side of that because of my brother. My father. My father was not a nice person, and I can go in so much detail, which that's going to be a couple of part episodes with this because it's hard for me to talk about those. It really opens up wounds, and it makes me really upset, and it gives me like almost a PTSD sensation, and I have been diagnosed with PTSD with working at the prison and with how my father was. So kind of going from there. So in 2006, I came out here to New Mexico, and I'm originally from California. I lived in a town called Glendora, California, born and raised, went to high school out there and everything else. And I was kind of in this lost aspect of what I wanted to do with my life. And I think all of us are in our late teens and our early 20s. And for me, I was working at a theme park called Raging Waters, and I really loved it there. It was probably one of the best jobs I ever had. It was so much fun, and I got promoted really fast. I got my job at 17, and by 18, I was already promoted. 19, I was a full supervisor, and it was just back and forth, back and forth. And I really did love working at this theme park. And I went to college for a little bit, and I kind of didn't know what I wanted to do. I was borderlining becoming a teacher. I was borderlining becoming a counselor. I was borderlining becoming a businessman. I was like, I really didn't know. So I went to Mount San Antonio College, and I stayed there for a little bit, but it didn't work out. It wasn't the college for me. It was a far drive, and I still was in this limbo of where I wanted to be. And I took a break from college for just about a semester, and I just worked. And I went from job to job because Raging Waters was seasonal. It was only a summer job. It's a water park. Well, by the time I did this seasonal job, I met with an officer, and I wish I could remember his name. And he talked to me for a little bit. He just kind of got to know me, and I kind of was curious. And he told me about becoming an officer, and I wanted to, and I didn't really know what to do. And I decided to go to Citrus College because I realized where I was at working at the time, there was no way that I was going to get anywhere. In California especially, it's really hard without a college degree. So I chose criminal justice, and I went I did my classes there. I did pretty well in those classes, and I was looking at becoming an officer for the Long Beach Police Department. And I didn't make it, and I passed the written exam with flying colors. I think it was in the top 10 of the class for the learning part, but I knew I couldn't pass the physical part. I wasn't a good physical specimen. I'm not now, but I'm better than what I was back then. And it came down to it that I was like, okay, and I retook the physical test after I failed it once, and I passed. Barely, but I passed. And they were going to begin the 6-month background check for me to be an officer. Well, During this time, I get a phone call from my mom and my stepdad, who were living in New Mexico. They moved from California to New Mexico into their dream home, and they told me to my face, "Hey, just to let you know," because they were helping me pay rent because I left Raging Waters at this time. Well, I was let go. That's another story. But I said okay, and I was working at UPS at night, and I was making $200 a week working at UPS at night. And my rent in California for a one-bedroom apartment was $1,000 a month. I was suffering to the point that my parents were paying my rent, and I still was barely making it. I was barely making it. And they said, "Listen, Chris, you have to figure out what you're going to do. And, we want you to be in college. We want you to go the law enforcement way, but we can't afford this." So I said, okay. And I didn't see my parents for a while. So I decided to come out here and visit them in New Mexico for the holidays. And I went out here and we were walking around in the mall, and they tell me to my face, "Hey, we got to figure this out. We got to figure out what you're going to do, and we got to figure out where you're going to go." And I saw in our local mall that it said corrections department now hiring. And kind of to shorten the story, my stepdad was kind of, my mom said, "Well, maybe you should try it out." And I was just like, "Well, think about it." And my stepdad left my mom's keys to her car, and that was him saying, "This is you thinking about you're gonna go and you need to try it." And I think my stepdad did it as a confidence builder for me. And he, so long story short, I passed everything, and they said, "We'll let you know." I go home 3 days later, and there's a letter in the mail saying, "Congratulations, you are now part of the Corrections Department in New Mexico. We need you to report as of in 2 weeks." Now, I didn't report for almost another 2 months because I was still in college. I still had classes, and so they had to wait. And I did my final goodbyes and everything else. And I moved out here. Instantly, the corrections department, the academy, gave me a reality check. It gave me a reality check to the fact of this can be really, really hard. This can be one of the hardest things ever. And the academy was different. It was something I've never done before. It was very military. It was, you slept there, you ate there, you went home on the weekends, and that was it. And I kind of was just doing what I could, and I didn't know if I was going to make it. I thought about dropping out, I thought about everything. And I literally had to go through the obstacle course of when I got maced, and I passed it. And I realized then, I was like, I can do this. And I just stuck with it. And kind of further along, I graduated in my class, and I went around and I did that job for about 10 years. It was really hard. It was some of the craziest things in the world you see at a prison. And the one thing that I had to learn when working at a prison is people are in there for a reason. And are there cases of people being there because of bad circumstances and they really didn't commit the crime? Of course, but honestly, that's very, very, very rare. And it's just sad to really see that humanity and this and that can really, really go down to this level. And I learned pretty quick. It took me a while. I was considered a nice officer, and I was I was an inmate lover in the beginning because I was so nice to them, and I was treating them as equals. And I'll never forget one day, and this inmate was getting mad at me because I was being a very strict officer, and he talked to me and said, "You know what, man, like, you have to realize, like, you get to go home and you get to see your family, and you don't understand, and this and that." And he got to me, and I literally was thinking that way. And I learned pretty quick because a week later that guy threw something in my face, and it was some bodily fluids. And I was supposed to feel bad for this guy. And I had a partner who pulled me aside and said, "You feel bad for him now?" I said, "Well, I don't know, he's upset. And this time he goes, man, he goes, the reason why he's in there is because he was a child killer. Killed his wife and his kid. He doesn't care about that. He's guilty of it. And he just threw that in your face. He don't care. And I kind of realized from there, now I still treated everybody as human beings and I tried to be the middle person, but it was really hard to learn that. And all the officers that I worked with, a lot of them didn't like me. And it took a lot of hazing, it took a lot of nitpicking and name calling and a lot of getting my butt whooped by my officers to really snap out of it and be better. And it was some of the best times. And now I'm not going to talk about prison stories here of what I witnessed and what I went through because this isn't the time and place. And also, a lot of that stuff is very hard to talk about. It's not just an easy thing just to open up. Now, some stuff is easier than others. You know, some stuff is just funny, and some stuff can be really, really devastating. So I'm not going to really talk about that right now. So for me, it drove me nuts to be there. And I made a really bad decision in the beginning, kind of shorten this video up a little bit, is I left the corrections department. The first time was really stupid. I should have never left. I left because I broke up. A relationship ended. Excuse me for that. That I really thought was going to be it. Now, when I first started the prison, I had a girlfriend in California, and that relationship ended. And my whole life changed after that, and I really, really, because I took this job to be a supportive boyfriend or husband, because I really thought I was going to marry this girl. And that one didn't work out. The main thing that helped is I had a good support system, and I had a good friend that was there for me. And that's what got me through it, because I wanted to quit. I wanted to leave. I was tired of getting cussed at. I was tired of getting yelled at. I was tired of getting spit on. I was tired of getting bodily fluids, threats, like weapons thrown at me, everything else you can think of happening around me. And I didn't know what else to do. But I had a good support system. And, a couple years, about 7 years down the line, I meet another girl. And me and her stayed together for a couple years. And I really thought I was going to marry this one. Like, it just was different. Well, it didn't last. That was mostly my fault. And I kind of just didn't know what else to do. And I was in a very, very slump because I was getting close to my 30s. I was getting close to, my whole life just changed, and at this time I had a falling out with my church that I'd never been able to recover because of my selfish needs and acts as well. And I've never been able to kind of recover from this. And there was a girl there that worked at the prison, and she was way younger than me. And my friend at the time was trying to get me to forget my ex, and he tried to make me, just hook up with her and just kind of move on. Now, I can't, it's hard for me just to do that to women. It's really hard for me just to do that and not show some kind of empathy. In a lot of ways, most men would say that makes me pathetic because it's going to happen. Like women only like jerks and they don't like nice guys. So that you're never going to get away anything in life. Well, me and this girl didn't work out because I was having all kinds of issues with my breakup. I didn't take the time for myself. I didn't do any of that. And I was being an idiot, and me and this girl didn't work. And I, in a way, became psychotic. And I did something really stupid to the point of and I got in this relationship with this girl when she was dating another guy. And she's like, oh, I'll break up with him soon. I want to be with you. It never happened. She was just using me for money. She was using me to pay her bills. She was using me for everything, and I was so trying to be with this one. I was just like, okay. And I had a couple friends there that was telling me, don't do this with this girl. Leave her alone. Stop. She's talking to 5 other officers. Stop. She's sending pictures to them. Stop. Don't do it, man. Don't do it. I'm telling you. And I chose not to believe him. I chose to stand with this girl, and I chose to be with her, and I chose to listen to her. And it later came down the line that she was seeing other guys. That me and her were fighting all the time because I couldn't trust her. And my friends were right. And I went to Graveyard. And I just stood on Graveyard. I hid from her. I hid from the world. Because after this time that the truth came out, all the officers that I worked were making fun of me. They're all talking crap. They're all saying how pathetic I was. They're all talking this and that. And I couldn't. I was like, you know what? These guys were my friends. And these weren't the ones that telling me not to do it. These are the ones that were like, oh, yeah, man. You do you, bro. Like, man, if you believe in it, just believe in her. And those were the same ones that were hitting her up. And they had pictures of her. And she was sending pictures to them. And she was talking to me. And it was stupid. I had to get away. And it was so hard for me. I did Graveyard. And I left. I did one more bit on Graveyard. And I came home one morning. I looked at my mirror, looked at my life, and said, what the heck am I doing? I'm not an officer. I did a lot of mean things at the prison. I did a lot of things I'm not proud of to be part of the officer group. But also, it was my job. But I knew this wasn't me. And the one thing I could say about being an officer, there's a lot of good guys there, a lot of good women that I served with that were just the best people. And I still love those people to death, even though the second time when I left the prison, I left in bad terms. But they were my brothers and they were my sisters, and I betrayed them. I turned my back on them. And the majority of ones that were there for me, I should have never done that. And I feel bad to this day because I shouldn't have done any of that to them. It's sad because I left a good career to follow what I felt was in my heart and was in my dreams, and I did a lot of things emotionally. And I shouldn't have done it. And it's something that I still struggle with to this day. So what I will tell people is this, is I will make another video explaining how I made my return to the corrections department and how I left. And I just couldn't do this anymore. And to all my officers that I was working with, thank you guys for the ones that were there. Thank you guys for being by my side when I needed it. Thank you guys for loving me and being my brother. And ones that are still with me, thank you for that. Because you guys still give me encouragement, and I really appreciate that. And just know that no matter what, I'm always going to be there for you guys. I may not talk to you as much, but I'm still there. With that being said, to all law enforcement, be safe. To all law enforcement, treat people fairly and don't judge them. Because deep down inside, we're all human beings and we all have a spirit, we all have blood. And all our blood is red. So remember that. And to all of you that serve your communities, your country, and your world, I appreciate all of you. Next will be part 2 of how I made my return after I quit and how I came back and why I left for the final time.